There's obviously bias in the hiring process when it comes to those looking to make a career change, whether it's how the entry level selection process unfairly indexes on recent college graduates only, or the overall inability of recruiters or hiring managers to assess and value relevant transferable skills in older candidates. So that's why today I'm chatting with Brad Reed, who's a career changer himself, where he unpacks some of the challenges career changers face in the job search and his perspective on how you can overcome them too. Well, hey, Brad, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
So you are a career changer yourself. And even after getting your first job in tech, you didn't stop there. You worked for 4 years as an instructor and a course content manager for Bootcamp. I see that on LinkedIn here. And it sounds like you worked closely with other career transitioners in that capacity. So today I'd like to focus on, from your experience and those that you've worked with, what are some of the common problems or roadblocks that you've seen career changers specifically see as they try to get their first job in tech?
Sure. A lot of times it comes down to feeling ready. You get that question a lot too. It's actually a question I've had in multiple interviews before I got my first job. I would have a recruiter or a hiring manager very specifically ask me, well, what makes you think you're ready to do this? Or what makes you think that you want to leave what you were doing? So for example, I was a police officer for 11 years. And one of the interviewers specifically said, you're obviously not going to be making what you were doing, what you were there since you're starting a new career. Are you okay with that? And they try to almost sideline the conversation a little bit. A lot of times, especially when they didn't fully read the resume, I would get questions about, what do you do now? And I'd tell them, and it would completely derail the entire conversation. And so something that a lot of people don't necessarily work with or know how to do that much is get that conversation back on track, because they get so focused on what you are doing as opposed to what you will be doing that sometimes it can just completely upend the entire interview. So for example, I had one person like, oh, what would make you want to leave after that much time? You have so much time invested. Why do you want to do this? Well, why are you moving over? And I said, look, I'm doing this because it's something that I want to do. It's something that I enjoy doing, and I felt I needed a change. And there's really no more necessary than that. But it is a problem that I see popping up a lot, of people just having those kinds of questions thrown at them and not knowing how to handle it and not knowing what to say. Like, are you ready? Like, do you feel ready? And the answer is always yes, because you're going to be trained anyway. But so many people don't feel like they can answer yes, and they really should be.
It's really weird though, right? So looking at it from a society perspective, right? Just because you chose one career path when you were, 20 years old, for some reason that has to define the rest of your life. And it's weird if you think of trying something different. It's like you have to just take the L in the first quarter of your life and just have that last the rest of your life. That's weird to me. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say it's very weird, and it's almost like jammed down our throats by some people, the way that they view it. It's like, oh, well, that has nothing to do with what you're going to be doing. Yes, I know, that's the point.
So you talk about getting the interview back on track, because they seem to, or recruiters, interviewers, whoever's you're talking with, get really indexed on the non-technical work experience that you have. So what are some of your thoughts on how you can gear it towards where you're going, as putting less on where you've been?
Sure. So one thing, when I was teaching job hunting at the New Camp Coding Bootcamp, one of the things I would tell people, they'd always say, oh, I didn't put that on my resume, or I didn't talk about that skill because it doesn't carry over to tech. It does. What you need to do is you need to equate the two things to really show them that you are thinking about this in a transitional manner, that you know almost what to expect as well as what to carry over. So for example, like I said, I was a police officer. I investigated things. I was a certified identity theft investigator, so I was used to tech and things like that anyway. So then it's what one of those skills are carrying over, being able to pay attention to details, being able to see things in patterns, being able to notice fairly quickly that something is off, as well as being able to communicate. Because I know we've all worked with brilliant engineers, PhDs, people that are way smarter than any of us ever could be, and you can't talk to them half the time. And you run into that sometimes in the software field. I've worked with people who I couldn't even begin to tell you how they're able to do what they do, but they can't explain it either. So being able to communicate and show that you can communicate those things, as well as showing some management skills that you may have picked up somewhere else, and really equating both what you were doing with what you will be doing, can help them realize, oh, maybe they are ready to switch over.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing you correctly, it's instead of ignoring what could be perceived as weaknesses, it's just reframing it in a way that could be perceived as
Yes.
not throwing away all of your previous experience, you're bringing it forward, and that's what you're offering.
Correct.
As far as navigating some of the weirdness of the interviews when you're changing careers, there's another element there that you mentioned. I get your thoughts on. and that was when agreeing to take a lower salary to get into this new role, and that seemed to trip up some people. How did you approach that salary conversation?
Sure. So usually my canned answer, if you will, would be that I know that after doing something for over a decade, I'm maxed out. I'm going to make more than starting something new. And that would, knowing that ahead of time is usually what can get you going forward, because they don't want you to be completely blindsided with the fact that, oh, you're taking a pay cut to do something new, but you also may not be. It depends on where you go. I did take a pay cut myself, but it wasn't nearly as much as I expected it would be to start into this field. So that's, knowing what to expect, and maybe you might be a little pleasantly surprised is always better.
Yeah, and it's not always about the salary. Well, obviously that's important for you. You have living expenses you need to cover, you have a family you need to support, but oftentimes it's just getting that first work experience into your belt, and then you can just exponentially grow after that. And you can move pretty high in compensation relatively quickly in software engineering if you're good. So that first job, it's less about like the number. I would say that it's going to be coming in that paycheck every month, and it's more just about the experience that you're going to be getting.
Oh, absolutely. And for me, my first and my current tech jobs, they were fully remote. So I was driving an hour each way to the police department to work, on midnight shift. So now you're taking that out of account. And because I live in the Northeast and storms get really bad here, I had a large SUV with aggressive tires on it. So I could get to work when they physically closed the highways, because I had to. I wasn't allowed to call out. I wouldn't get paid. So not having to spend gas on that and things, you have to figure a lot of that into any kind of, salary hit, so to speak, that you take, that it may not be as bad as you think it is.
For sure, for sure. So focusing more on the interview psychology and the dynamics there specifically,
Mhm.
The software engineering interview process can be very different from, I'm sure, the interview process you go through as getting a job as a police officer. So what are some of the differences that stood out for you as you were going through your job search journey that you weren't really prepared for, but learned to kind of but learn how to better prepare for?
Sure. So one thing I've noticed are trick questions, and these are psychological tricks in order to completely derail your train of thought. So they're designed to get you thinking about something else, and then immediately they're going to try to bring you back to thinking about something hard. An example of this is, and I got asked this in almost every interview, was asking me what my hobbies are. Now they don't care what the answer is. They're not even going to write down or record whatever that answer is, because it doesn't matter to them. The entire point of questions like that is to throw you off. So they want to see, how are you going to solve a problem after being thrown off, being like, why are these people asking me that? And then immediately getting asked, all right, well, what does this mean in this type of code? And so things like that are something to completely look out for, is that people will do that. There is a little bit of psychology in there. The other thing, a lot of people get in their own heads, and they tend to perform worse under that kind of pressure. And the thing is, interviewers know that, and they're usually pretty human. So they're going to give you a little bit of leeway. If you get things wrong, if you don't know an answer, you'd be surprised how much that actually can go more in your favor. For example, my first tech job, I actually got one question wrong and straight up didn't know the answer to it for my job at Home Depot. But I got the job anyway because I asked them to explain it to me when I didn't know, or if I got it wrong, could you tell me what the correct answer for that is, or how to do that properly so I know better, for next time, or if I wanted to use it myself. And the feedback you get from things like that is that they appreciated your willingness to learn. And that's basically how you can kind of guide the conversation more in your favor, even though you're doing something negative, like not having an answer.
Yeah, it's more about how you think,
Mm-hmm.
how you approach problems, how you communicate. That's often what's being evaluated, in addition to just getting the technical answer right. While it is important, and I'm sure it helps to get the right answer, it's not at the end of the day if you fail. Absolutely.
Correct.
So thinking back to your specific job journey here now, a lot of people are struggling to even get the job interview to begin with. So I want to kind of pull on the thread here for you, police officer. You've gotten some certifications. Now you're trying to get that first job in tech. What was, the job board that you used, or the people that you talked to, and can you be specific about, where you looked to actually find a company that was willing to actually bring on a true entry-level developer?
Sure. So I actually ran into, the same problems everyone else does. I wasn't getting calls back. I wasn't getting anything. I was complaining a lot on LinkedIn. And someone who used to be in Homeland Security reached out to me, who was also a Java developer, because I started my learning in Java, unfortunately. And he said, hey, I know a recruiter. He used to be a Colorado State Trooper. He works as a full-time recruiter now. Do you mind if I send him your information? Sure. And he works for Optimi Staffing Services, and they got me my job as a contractor at Home Depot. That was my first job. My current job, I was actually poached. They saw my profile on Dice.com, which is just a tech job board that seems to have kind of gone out of favor, but recruiters still do use it because I'm not even looking now, and I still get emails that recruiters are looking at my profile on there. And they called me and said, hey, we're looking for a React Native developer. Are you able to interview? And we went from there. I also did use Indeed, and oddly enough was in the hiring process for Indeed themselves. But that tends to have a lot of job scams. So I try to steer people away from that.
So just to rephrase, what I'm hearing is you had some contacts that you had probably never met in person. This person who worked in home security, but you were active on LinkedIn, you were active on social media. There was some trust that was developing there. And somebody who you didn't know connected you with a recruiter that might be more open to somebody from your background. So this was not a direct application that you had submitted. And then you mentioned a staffing firm. So that means that their whole compensation model is about getting paid by placing individuals at companies or contracting at Home Depot. So these staffing firms, they're financially motivated to help people find work. So it wasn't just you looking for a job anymore. Now you had this little army behind you that was all trying to find you a job so that they can get money too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you're not alone when it comes to this journey. And when that happened, I guess, how long had you been active on LinkedIn looking for work before this transformative experience happened?
People aren't going to like this answer, but it was a little over a year.
Yeah.
So
it can take a long time.
It was when I started learning Java, which was June 2020. And then I started getting more active on LinkedIn, posting what I was learning at the recommendation of my cousin, who is a developer. He said, you really should get out there and put your stuff out there so people see it. And then I kept doing that. And then when I went through the boot camp, towards the end of the boot camp is actually when I was contacted and when I got hired at Home Depot. And there were a few other, just from posting what I was working on, personal projects. I actually had people reach out to me and DM me to set up interviews. Those didn't go anywhere, but I actually got interviews just from posting and building things in public. So,
but the principle is there. It might be roughly a year now. I don't know if the market has changed that substantially since you were looking for work, but I usually tell people before you even start boot camp, you need to be having these conversations online and have a presence because it can take a while. Some people only takes a few months. Some people it takes longer. But the sooner you plant that seed, the more opportunities start presenting themselves. Even if really no experience to speak to, I know it can feel uncomfortable in the beginning. Like, what do you even say online if you've never really done this before? So, what type of posts worked for you? Back to when you were a novice programmer, what were you even talking about on LinkedIn that helped you build that network?
Sure. So I would post the projects I was working on. I would get gauge for ideas, or if I ran into a problem, even if I may have been able to find the answer or knew the answer, I would post the problem anyway, just because people on the internet love to argue. So they're going to give you answers. They're going to tell you, what they think of it. And that got me, my cousin actually told me that I was obnoxious once he told me to start posting on LinkedIn. He said I was doing way too much. I was like, well, hey, it got me a job. I don't care. So posting like what I was working on, specifically, the big thing that got people focused on me was I was making a mobile app for recipes, because we all see recipes online with people with life stories, and then that's obnoxious. So I was making one that had none of that. And so because I framed it like that in a humorous way, it stuck in people's mind and they remembered it and they messaged me.
Okay, there you go. So you're just sharing your own journey and asking questions, right? It's not necessarily trying to be a thought leader even. It's just you're sharing your story and you're asking questions, and that's enough engagement to draw the right audience to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So as you think about the job search today, we've had these massive layoffs in the last few years. It's getting more and more difficult to find your first job in tech as a career transitioner. Are there any general advice that you would offer folks that are in a similar position now that you were a few years ago? Where should they start, would you say? Are there any tools or services or people or programs that you think are better than others in helping people prepare for that job journey?
I know we had a big chat internally about a lot of people are learning basics with AI. And while Personally, AI for React Native is atrocious. If you are using it to learn very basics, it's a good way to get you started. If you don't know where to start, that can help point you in the right direction. Just know that its accuracy rate is pretty terrible, but it can get you started, and then you can figure out where you want to learn from there. The biggest piece of advice I got before I started was from friends from college who became developers. When I said I was starting to learn, they straight up asked me, what kind of developer do you want to be? I didn't have an answer. And that's why I started with something like Java, simply because Java is everywhere around here. But they said that's not a good enough answer. You have to know what kind of developer you want to be in order to really be able to set out a path for yourself. So if you want to work on games, if you want to work on mobile apps, if you want to work on e-commerce websites, you have to start thinking about how to learn that specifically. And a lot of boot camps are very expensive and out of a lot of people's reach. So there's a lot of also free things out there, like freecodecamp.com. A lot of people love that. MDN Web Docs have a lot, and Geeks for Geeks have a lot of free resources for people that show you straight up how to use algorithms, where to put them, how to use them in different languages even, so you can compare if you wanted to learn something new. And those are great ways to really get started. And then from there, the biggest question everyone always has, what should I build? Should I, do these tutorials? Should I build this thing that everyone else builds? My answer to that for people is build something that solves a problem you have. And the reason I say that is because when you're asked about it, since it's solving your own problem, you're going to be more passionate about it when you talk about it. You're going to want to work on it more because it's something that's going to help you in your life. And you're going to have a lot more to show for it because you're more passionate about it. Now, if you're terrible at designing like me, it may not look the best, but it's still going to exist.
Sure. Yeah, and even you'd be surprised the quality of designs you can get from Fiverr or Upwork even.
Mm-hmm.
I created a little sample application when I was learning React Native. It was called Is Today My Birthday? And it does exactly what you think it does. You enter in your date and it tells you if today's your birthday or not. But I think it was for like $30. I was able to get say nice logos, a nice landing page, some nice animations. Pretty affordable considering how when I show that demo application to people, they oftentimes comment how pretty it is. When it wasn't really me. It was just, Fiverr design document somebody else put together. Which is not uncommon. In real software engineering, the design team is a whole separate function. So it's not like you're having somebody else do your work for you. Well, Brad, I appreciate the conversation and having you come on to share your story and kind of the experiences you've had with other new developers that are getting into tech. That is all the time that we have for today. So thank you for coming on, and we will see you all next time. Thanks for tuning in to the Junior Jobs Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to like and subscribe, as that helps us reach more developers in need. And don't forget to check the show notes for details on today's sponsor and other job search services that we provide.